So this idea here is an eschatology, a vision for the end of times, when the Word, the Torah, the Memra, the Logos, will conquer, you might say, the lower dimensions of human spirit. The next one you'll find in the book of Isaiah. Go over to Isaiah chapter 9. It says here, chapter 9, verse 1. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelled in the land of the shadow of death, the light has shone upon them. You exalted the nation, you increased its joy. Go down a little bit further, verse 5. For a child has been born to us, a son has been given us, and the dominion will rest upon his shoulder. The wondrous advisor, mighty God, eternal Father, called his name Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace. Upon the one with the greatness and dominion and boundless peace that will prevail on the throne of David and on his kingdom, to establish it and sustain it with justice and righteousness from now to eternity. The zealousness of God, the master of legions, will accomplish this. Okay? Now, when Isaiah wrote this, apparently he was talking about the birth of Hezekiah, the king that was understood to be the once and future king who will bring peace to the region. So if you look in the book of Isaiah, it seems to be discussing either Hezekiah or maybe even King Josiah at the end of the history. Now, since neither Hezekiah nor Josiah fulfilled the prophecy, the idea was the prophecy was open. So from the Jewish perspective, what they're waiting for is the prophet that will do a few things. Zion will be exalted, the truth will go out, light will conquer the darkness, war will cease, and righteousness and justice will prevail. So for them, that was the sign that the Messiah had arrived. So for those who were waiting for the anointed one of God in the first century, they would know when the anointed one of God would have arrived. They look out the window, they wouldn't see any more Roman soldiers. That would be their evidence. If war would cease, the Romans would go back to Italy. Right? There would be no war anymore. And they're waiting for Zion to be the exalted nation. So one reason the Judeans, because they're so attached to the prophecy of Isaiah, the literal prophecy of Isaiah, the idea that the point of the anointed one was to help humanity overcome the abysmal separation from God by having our sins atoned by the death of Jesus, is just not what you see in the prophecy of Isaiah. If you look at Isaiah chapter 2, chapter 9, and the last one in chapter 11, it says here, chapter 11, verse 1, a staff will emerge from the stump of Jesse. This is the David's father. A sprout will shoot from its roots. The Spirit of God will rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, counsel and strength, knowledge and fear of God. He will be imbued with a spirit of fear for God or awe, and will not need to judge by what his eyes see, his ears hear. He will judge the destitute with righteousness, decide with fairness for the humble of the earth. He will strike the wicked of the world with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be the girdle of his loins, and faith will be the girdle of his waist. The wolf will live with the sheep. The leopard will lie down with the kid and a calf, and a lion whelp with a fatling walk together. A young child will lead them. A cow and a bear will graze. Their young will lie together. Like a lion, like cattle, will eat hay. A suckling will play by a viper's hole. A newly weaned child will stretch his hand toward an adder's lair. They will neither injure nor destroy in all my sacred mountain, and the earth will be filled with the knowledge of God. This is extraordinarily beautiful. But this is what they were waiting for. So when it was announced that the Messiah had come, I think for those who had a different sense of what the anointed one of God would do, I talk about the inner salve, that a message would come that God had forgiven you, that if you accepted the gracious gift, that you would be filled with the love of God, a metanoia, a turning of spirit. For those who experienced that when Jesus was preached, they felt that the Messiah had come because they had been healed. For those who were attached to the Isaiah prophecies in chapter 2, 9, and 11, the arrival of Jesus did not satisfy their requirement for the anointed one of God. So my sense is, depending on what you thought the anointed one of God would do, would depend on whether you accepted Jesus as the anointed one of God.
Shalom, 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 tova uveracha. Shalom, 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 tova uveracha. Ay 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 ay. Ay 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 ay. Shalom, sing.